expert. Who's that guy in that orange shirt? Who must be the fence expert? It's almost time to talk about the fences. It's time to discuss operations and expenses. It's time, it's really time to elevate small businesses. It's time for Joe to drop his knowledge, it's relentless. This rhyme of mine is getting a bit ridiculous. So here we go, we're live with Joe. Enjoy the show.
What is up, Fence fam? So good to be back with you guys again, virtually as it is, or as it were, whatever it is I usually say. Welcome back. Great to be back with you guys. We have had, the fencing industry has had an incredible couple weeks. 2 weeks ago, we were at West Coast Fence Show. We're getting ready to talk to Robert. I know that they were just at the Vegas show. It'd be interesting to hear kind of thoughts and just how those things went. I know West Coast Fence Show went incredibly well. For those of you that I saw out there, appreciate you coming up and saying hello. It's always good meeting our virtual friends in person. So if that was you, thank you. I appreciate you coming up and saying hello. Guys, we'll introduce our guests here in just a minute, but first and foremost, I've got to thank our sponsors of each and every live, this one included, Expert Professional Wood Care Products. So we love the stain. Also, one of their brands, Go for Wood. But we love the stain. We love pre-staining. We don't stain as much on site anymore just because we've learned the ways of pre-staining and how it is so much better because you can stain in the rain and that sort of thing. But Thank you so much, Expert Professional Wood Care Products. If you guys are interested in staying, one, check them out. They'd be happy to send you a free sample. Also, if you'd be interested in offering pre-stain but don't have the facilities and resources to do that, be sure to check out Go for Wood. Caleb Ashley and the whole team will take very good care of you, just like they take very good care of me and my team. So to the Expert Professional Wood Care team, thank you. I appreciate it. If you guys are listening to this on the podcast, thank you for tuning in. You are listening to a recorded version of a live conversation I hold most every Saturday. I say most every Saturday just because last Saturday we didn't make it because we were at West Coast Finch Show. Next Saturday, spoiler alert, no live next Saturday either because we have the Midwest chapter of the AFA's golf tournament coming up. So, like I said, most every Saturday, but I appreciate you guys tuning in all the same. The team tells me it would be a huge help if you were to enter a review, not offer a review. We would just ask you to go ahead and put that thing in there. With your, how do they usually say this? With your 5-star experience, we're not allowed to actually ask you for ratings, but if you were, we'd like it a lot. Altogether, thank you guys, whether you're watching live or you're tuning in on a podcast, thank you so much. If you're on the podcast and you'd like to watch this live, be sure just to search my name, Joe Everest, on wherever you consume video content. YouTube primarily, Facebook, usually LinkedIn, but the API is being kind of weird right now, so no LinkedIn. So YouTube or Facebook at the moment. Be sure to check us out there. With all that being said, if you guys have read the introduction, if you know who the guest is, I mean, if you're in the fence industry, you already know this guy. Now, taste and color, questionable, but we can get past that. Today's guest, the one and the only, if I can get my mouse to work, Robert Whittaker. Buddy, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. You are jazzed up this morning.
It's a good day. It's a good day. It's going to be a beautiful one.
Yeah. For all the fact checkers out there that's cleared up, I actually didn't get to make it to Vegas, but a lot of the people that I coached in Vegas, so it was like I was there.
Gotcha.
Super love and support what Brian's doing out there. Just like anybody, schedules didn't line up to this time. I was cheering them on. Tons of people from the Purple team went. They loved it. A lot of camaraderie.
Nice.
It's a cool experience, and it's amazing what he's done over the last couple of years for sure. Looking forward to getting the feedback. So actually, we were reflecting on it yesterday. I was here helping run all the businesses while the owners were in Vegas. So we had some new onboards for some different people throughout the United States that I coach. And so we had some big wins while owners were gone. And Matt Lowry texted me, he said, "Man, I won $60,000 this week." And I was like, "In Vegas?" He's like, "No, you ran the sales this week with my team and we sold $60K." So it was like I was hitting jackpots with no money in the machine. So
love that.
Anyways, yeah, man, I'm jazzed up too. I'm here in my office, and this is obviously where I love being. I love talking business. So thanks for having me on, Joe.
Of course. You had made a social post a little while ago. You're like, "Hey, I've got an exciting topic to talk about. Where should I talk about it?" I'm like, hi, me, maybe. I would love to have you on the show. No, so I'm just as excited to have you on as well. I mean, we've talked a lot just privately, personally, and so to be able to bring you on the show and try to share some of this knowledge. Guys, I'm telling you what, you've got to buckle up and probably take some notes. If you're watching this live, don't come back and watch it recorded. Based on our personal private conversation before this started, holy cow. I mean, we are going to just over-deliver on the Golden Nuggets today. So first and foremost, before we dive into it, let's say hello to a few people because this is something I'm not great at. I get so excited to talk about the thing that we just dive right into it, and then we come up for air an hour and a half later, and I'm like, oh, the chat just got absolutely ignored today. So we're going to say hello. I believe you know this gentleman.
Oh, yeah. What's up, Alex? What's up, man?
Alex, I appreciate you sharing out the show. I saw that come in earlier. Thank you so much. Appreciate that a lot. Aaron Preston, my man Joe. Hello, Aaron. How are you doing? So a shirt. Who had Fence Cloud had a shirt. You know, they'll do specialty shirts for the shows, and they had a guy with like fencing that said, "Not that fencing," or "I'm not that kind of fencer," or something like that. Hilarious, because it's. After that, we were at the blackjack table later on in the evening, and guys like Fitz are like they were they were, I think they were from Australia or New Zealand. I get.
Well, they seen us in the Olympics then.
Right. So they're like, oh, like fencing. I'm like, gentlemen, I mean, thank you for even considering that I would be that kind of athletic. And two, look at me. Like, this is not athletic build or fencing or like this fencing build. You know what I mean? But anyway, not that kind of fencing. I love it. So what's interesting, Robert, this is the subject we're going to get into. No wins, phone. So I asked everyone to share a win for the week. Aaron said the phones aren't ringing. Has the fence community estimate slowed down? It's a great subject to talk about. It's
good segue. That's what we are talking about today.
Absolutely. So, Aaron, we're going to put a pin in that for just a second. We're going to say hello to a couple people. They're going to dive right. That is the subject of today we'll dive into it. But topics would include, like, it's an election year, right? And we're coming off pandemic, so maybe it's getting back to pre-pandemic type norms, that sort of thing. We're going to come to that. Give us a minute. We're going to say hello to a few people. Right back to it. Nick R., what is up, Nick? What's up? What's up? Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Nick.
Is that Nick Reich?
Could be. Nick, appreciate you joining.
Nick Reich, that guy has been working his tail off. If it's not Nick Reich, I'll still give Nick Reich a plug. We are going to the AFA event next week in South Carolina. It's their big, it's been around 40 years.
Yeah.
And I'm doing, look, it is Nick. Me and Nick are redelivering the OMS that we pulled offline, and we rewrote it to be a little bit more all-encompassing. And Nick has worked his butt off to finalize it. I'm not a details guy, and so me and Nick get to deliver it for the first time. A couple of days ago, we had 13 people sign up, which is huge for a pilot program. So, Nick, I absolutely can't wait to see you next week, and then also, of course, play some cornhole.
Absolutely. So at AFA mid-year, so we just had a video come out this week where we kind of did an overview of AFA mid-year. So Nick was presenting. So you and Nick kind of talked about what's coming up, like what to expect. Nick went into detail about the online training. Holy cow. Like, I think when this rolls out nationwide, I mean, it's out nationwide, but I mean, when it starts being talked about everywhere, this is going to be a game changer as far as education being accessible to fencing professionals.
Oh, you're talking
literally
about
anywhere there's an internet connection.
Yeah, you're talking about the whole online platform. Oh my goodness, yeah.
So, that's right. OMS, operations management.
Yeah, OMS is
got it.
But that will also be online, because what we've identified is these courses. Like, this is the OMS course. Well, you can't really see it, but the course book. You can't do that in 2 days, and people can't give 5 or 6. So if we could do some stuff online. What's cool though is, like, I did a presentation at Fence Tech, Tony and a few other people, and that's also on the online portal. So you can get that education going. So I'm super excited for all that Nick and the AFA team has done. They've made the financial investment. Now we just got to, get the content up. So super excited about that. But OMS, Operation Management School, Nick, here's a small, it's a huge win for me. My operations guy was Googling classes taking. He's like, hey, I read about this OMS class. I think that would be good for me. And I'm like, I've been writing it the last 4 months with Nick. And he's like, so super excited to get the buzz out there on that. Josh Glover led the charge initially on it. So we worked with this content and revamped it for some of the feedback people gave us. So super excited. So there we go.
Well, in operations management, I mean, I haven't been through the course, but to hear it talked about, really it's applicable for anyone from owner-operator up to multi-location sort of situation. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the challenging parts for OMS is it's like sales is sales, whether you're selling, a $10,000 fence and $100,000 for the most part. And I'm not to discredit that, but you can write how to sell and it's pretty streamlined. But we were trying to write, and I think we've done a pretty good job writing an operation management for 0 to 100 million. And going from maybe you're an operations guy or gal in like the supply side, and then you go work for somebody on the actual product side or the install side, and we want it to be overlapping. And so there's a lot of layers when it comes to keeping all that in mind and knowing when to pass the baton, because typically operation managers are the owner to a certain point. And so really excited to do it. I've been reading some of the content that Nick has kind of finally put together. I wouldn't say finally put together. We got him all the stuff. I was working with Dan Tupperville and my brother on this as well. And it's so good. It's so good.
Well, I, for one, am looking forward to it. I mean, it's, I think, hearing about version 1 and then the revamp into version 2, completely excited.
It's good. It's good.
So, guys, check it out. It's coming up. So, you guys, Carolinas by the Sea is what you're talking about. Yeah. So, where you guys are going to be at is, what's that island?
Kauai or something. It sounds like Hawaii.
Kiowa. So, it's Kiowa Island. So, we went out there for like a guy's trip. This has been 4 or 5 years ago. And I made the mistake of having us stay out there, which the only reason I say it's a mistake is it's about a 45-minute drive back to the city. Now, for an event like you guys are having, that's dedicated event, you guys are going there, staying there, buddy, it is beautiful.
I can't wait.
You're going to love it. It's just getting there. It's a picturesque, like trees on either side that like over canopy the road. And it's just like so good. It's so Carolinas by the Sea. Now, I'm not supposed to talk about it too much, Robert, because it's the same weekend as the Midwest AFA, our regional meeting, golf tournament, all that. So I can't push it too hard. But if you're on that side of the country, you ought to go.
Yeah. Well, cool.
So one of the things that got brought up at mid-year is we got to have a calendar, like an event calendar, because Carolina by the Sea, Midwest AFA at Shangri-La, also up in Ohio, they're doing a clay shoot, the big annual clay shoot that everyone goes to. So on the same weekend, we've got all these, because when I was hearing about Carolinas by the Sea, when they're talking about it, I was like, I would love to go to that. Let me look it up.
I went last year. It was great. So there is a calendar out there.
Okay.
Yeah, so purplecoaching.com. So we actually opened up our calendar, open API. So if you want to upload any of your events or any of your chapter calendars, you can, because we wanted to solve that problem.
I love that.
FWA, AFA, all of Tony's stuff. I imagine Sean King will get his stuff on there as well, because they're still kind of learning the bugs. Benji made my site. So trying to make sure, but we want that calendar to be so stinking full so somebody knows where they can be tomorrow. It wants to be like the ticket master of calendars. So if you have an event, go upload it to Purple Coaching, and then everybody can see it. So
I love that.
There's your calendar.
I love it. We've got a calendar now. Perfect.
There we go.
But no, so all that's coming up. Next week's going to be a big week again in the fencing industry, because like all this is going on.
And then Robert planned a dove hunt at the end of this month that I have 75 fence professionals coming to, 15 different states. So
love it. I love it.
So Aaron, I'm sorry the phone's not ringing. We'll get into it, but we just all messed up September anyways. So
right. It's everything was this month. Everything. Like all the fall things this month. We're done with it.
If the game warden would let me shoot dove in August, then we would move ours to August.
Oh, picky.
Yeah.
So Aaron says, "Hey Joe, am I on next week or the week after?" Come on, Aaron, come on. So we also need to think. When we get to talking here, we need to also talk about Google Guarantee, maybe, or we can kind of hit on that towards the end. I think it's great. I mean, there might be varying opinions out there. Me personally, I think it's great. It's not hard to get into, but there are steps to it. You got to jump through a few hoops. There's like a background check on you personally. There's also what else is there? They want to see, obviously, certificate of insurance. It's all stuff that makes sense. If you're having somebody to your house, you want to make sure they jump through these hoops.
I have a lot of analytics on that, and we can compass this into the conversation. Another shout out. I promise y'all we'll get to the content. I heard Benji delivered an absolute banger over the FWA presentation about branding and just all the digital space, and just the feedback I got. I mean, he had a packed crowd. Benji at Clever Fox, like, I mean, I heard he nailed it. And so if that got recorded, I hope it circulates. If not, that's why it's important to go to these things. Is, Matt Lowry was just texting me like, oh my goodness, this is nugget. And so anyways, Aaron, I'm pretty sure we could dive a little into Google guarantee because I got some analytics on that.
Very good. Ben Pierce says the best fence guy. And me too. I mean, and me too. But yeah, you're right. We got the best fence guy in the room.
Which one, Ben?
We know. It's Robert. Nick says, looking forward to it. Think we are at 16 now. So talking about OMS. Love it. Corey's talking about just kind of fall industry trends that he's seeing. So we're seeing average ticket being lower, smaller jobs, and more repairs. That's an interesting data point. We'll put a pin in this as well, but I do want to bring it up because we're tracking job sizes too. We'll talk about it. If I start now, we're just going to get straight into it, and we're not going to be able to say hello to Josh. Josh, how are you? Let's go. Hey, this is your best friend.
Yes, what's up, Josh? Yes, they're killing it, man. They're killing it in Fencing Unlimited.
I love it. Craig Eubanks, what's up, Craig? Good morning, gentlemen.
That guy took FWO by storm. He was on everything. You couldn't not see Craig in there. That guy wins literally everything. He won a post pounder at the party, the kickoff party we did for FinSec, and then he won a gift certificate for having the best fence sign. Dude is lady luck.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're not
from JC Gurry.
There you go. Guys, if you're not watching Craig's Fence Guy Friday, you absolutely should be. Of course, he had a few extra lives in this week. Like you said, he was at the Fence Show there in Vegas, going live, showing everybody around. So huge shout out to Craig. Check out Fence Guy, or no, just Fence Guy Fridays. Is that right? Yes. Friday. I always get confused because one I ran in the past was Ask a Fence Guy Friday, and Craig had come up. He's like, "Hey, this is a year ago. Hey, I think I'm going to do like a version of Fence Guy Friday." Love it. God bless you. Go do it. But that's always why I get screwed up. Anyway, Fence Guy Friday, Eubanks Fence. Check it out. Great content. I like it a lot. All right, Robert, are we ready?
We're ready, man.
I'm so excited.
This has been burning a hole in me because I've been wanting to get it out and I haven't told enough people yet. So
let's set up the premise.
Okay.
It's an election year.
Yeah, it is.
Coming out of pandemic.
Yep.
It's fall. To Aaron's point, phones aren't ringing. What's going on, Robert? I mean, This is kind of doom and gloom out there at the moment.
It can be. And if anybody knows me, I'm not one to set a goal you can't reach. I know that there's an importance of setting a bigger goal, and the whole saying, you underestimate what you can do in 10 years, overestimate what you can do in a year. I get all that. It could be a doom and gloom year if you have a scarcity mindset. And that's kind of what we said was, hey, you can either have a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset. And I was thinking about like, what makes up a down year? Like, where do we even get that information from?
Sure.
I was like, surely we would want to support that with facts and talking about election year. So I was like, well, I'm going to do a lot of research on election year because I've heard that get thrown around a lot.
Yep.
And part of being a coach is kind of interesting. People trust you with a whole lot. And so you better be able to back it up. And so I always was intrigued with coaches and people who write books. They have a lab, a research lab. Yeah. So I have to research a lot, and I'm happy to report that election years don't really affect as much as we think it does. But most importantly, election years will affect the industry that they're talking about. And so I did some additional research, and I just want to kind of build up some of this story, and then we'll dive straight in. The third fastest growing, largest, and obviously you could find some data depending on how you search this, is solar farms. Well, that's So while election year or down year or whatever else, solar farms currently is in the top 10. And then manufacturing facilities are in 2 of the top 10, which typically manufacturing has some sort of security perimeter fencing or whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to thinking about it. I was like, well, are we looking at policies? Like, why are we saying, oh, it's an election year? Are the policies affecting us? And there's a lot of policies that have to do with infrastructure, which is us. And so, anyways, it got me down. It got me thinking about like election year. Like, what does that actually mean to you? And I think that's a rhetorical question. I want people to be like, what makes it a down year for you, or what makes it a down year? Like, how can you coin that? What makes an election year? How does that actually affect you? Like, if you're in print material for politics, makes sense.
Sure.
But I got to think about it, and so I was like, well, let's just dive into the numbers. Let's prove it with the numbers. And what I found, the short version is, during an election year, we never had a down year. But after an election year, we had a spike. And what we found was it didn't matter Democrat or Republican. Now, this is not a political talk. I just left Maxwell, and he nailed it in my opinion. He says, I don't care who you vote for. I care about how you act. And it got me reflecting. And I have some friends that have struggling businesses that have vocally said they're preparing for civil war, instead of preparing their business to be able to cash flow.
Yep.
And so I said, well, history repeats itself. So I sent you a spreadsheet. I filled out the spreadsheet. Oh, my goodness.
Different companies, right? Yep. We talked about this a little bit before the show. Obviously, different demographics, much different geography, much different. I mean, our metro market's 250,000, right? So we are a small market. We also talked about our businesses. How they run are different. We're leaning into e-commerce and kind of regional distribution, do a good amount of commercial, where you guys have found a niche, and we could talk about this if you want to, but you found a niche in like backyard oasis, right? Yeah. Like it just turning backyards into places people want to be. Different. So we both do fence, but we're finding different areas within the fencing industry, different parts of the playground to play in. How close were the numbers, Robert?
Yeah, so we did Q3. This is crazy. So Q3, we were off by 3% of annual revenue between the two of the businesses. So for simple math, Joe did 27, 28%. I did 24, 25% of my annual income in Q3.
In that quarter.
Each month, we were between 1% and 2% off from each other annual. So it didn't mean that we were doing the exact same dollar amounts, but percentage of our annual income. And
how crazy is that?
That's crazy. So I was like, oh, well, everybody should be this way. But then some people are going to argue it. They're going to be like, well, that's not us.
Sure.
We're 5, 8, 10, 12%. And so then I got to thinking, I was like, what makes this true? Before I get there, I was looking at it. You and I, a Q3 on the average of the last 6 years is averaging only about 4 to 5% off from each other. So me and Joe ran the numbers. Joe actually has a running number from 97. I went back 10 years, and then I went another 10 years back for my landscape company. But we just looked at the last 6 years, even with pandemics and stuff like that.
Right. That's the important part.
We were within 4 to 5% of annual income, me and Joe.
And guys, that is, if you had asked me, I would have guessed the discrepancy would have been much larger. Different, like I said, different businesses, different parts of the country. The markets are very different. What we specialize in is different. So you might think seasonality were different or something like that. So we very much have a winter season where now it doesn't typically kick in until around Thanksgiving, so we've got a little bit of runway left. But the further south you get, the more you get away from seasonality. I mean, there is some seasonal change, I'm sure, but you get away from it. And I always think of things in extreme, right? So the South is going to have less of a winter season than someone in North Dakota, right?
Yeah.
Like those guys are going to have an incredible winter season. Not incredible, but just a much larger difference between summer and winter.
And that just kind of goes back to, and I'm not suggesting that people should do this, but I mean, there's a lot of people in the North that plow snow. So they're just supplementing their income.
Yeah.
I do want to be clear for the listeners. We are talking about sales. We're not talking about gross margin dollar.
Yep.
And I know that a lot of people, depending on how you record your sale or your income, everyone's like, well, I don't record it until we completed whatever. It doesn't. The point is, if you sell every month and you record it maybe the next month executed, it's all relative if you're looking at the data. So so there's some stuff there. I also wanted, because I heard that you need to be fun on a podcast. You can't only talk business.
Sure.
Our biggest season in Forward Texas is Cowboys season. So as you know, Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. So we generally have to shut down. Yeah, I know. No, I'm just kidding. Don't ever. I'm kidding.
That is a bold prediction.
But that's what happens every year. And then somewhere
Sure.
around the 8th game, Dak gets hurt. But no, I'm just kidding. But that's interesting too. We, like, TCU won all the games, went to the national championship. People were constantly calling us, hey, I want a patio. I'm like, well, it's not going to get done before the national championship, but I had such a good time watching a game on somebody else's patio. And so things that are going on in your market. And so I have this quote pulled up. It's one of my favorites for this particular case. Is, you can have the greatest strategy in the world, but what is the point if no one cares? I'm going to read that again. You can have the greatest strategy in the world, but what is the point if no one cares? And so here's my bridge between me and you. You and I sell things to people that they care about. And as people stop caring about a product or a service, we change our strategy. There's no way since '97 Joe Everett has sold the exact same thing. And we promised we weren't going to get crazy in the numbers.
Sure.
But your online business has taken market share over your total revenue.
Yes.
And it's because you're selling the way people like to buy. It just makes sense. So here's a plug for my salesman. People feel more comfortable buying online.
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, people are not nearly as comfortable, in my opinion, having conflict. Hey, I don't agree with the price. Can you give me a better price? The ego is bigger than it's ever been because of influencers and the falsity of like what people's lives look like. So giving people the comfort of being able to either buy online, negotiate online, or do whatever without actually having to interact with a human provides comfort. And so you can have the greatest strategy in the world, but what's the point if no one cares? And so you have to go where your customers go. And so if customers care more about price right now, you're going to have to find a way to play that price, not discounting. You'll have to just find a product that meets it. And so repairs and stuff like that, 85% of my business is repeat and referral. How do we get a repeat and referral? You have to do work for them. So I will do a repair every day of the week, and I will play the long game because I'm going to be in business next year. So you got to have CRM set up to do slow trickle campaigns. And so talking about things that people care about, I get it. Nobody likes doing repairs. They've set a limit of $2,500. Guess what? If we're in a down market election, whatever, phones aren't ringing, go take the $100 repair and use it as a customer acquisition cost.
Yep. Well, and it does a couple other things for you. I'm a big proponent of getting into repairs, and it's something we toy with quite a lot, is having just a repair guy, just a truck with all the different tools, all the different fittings, have him go repair to repair. It does a couple things. One, to your point, customer acquisition, which on the repair side is incredibly easier than on install because less competition. Typically, at least in our market, there's no competition for repairs. Absolutely zero. You're also helping these people that, they're not ready for a full fence or for whatever reason, but you can be the person that helps them, right? You can be helpful when they've probably called 4 or 5 other people who have said, no, we don't do it. Or to your point, they say, well, our minimum's $2,500 to come out. And you're like, well, but it's just a post. It's not worth that. I'm like, well, no, I get it, but that's the price. No competition. You're helping them out. So they feel not indebted to you, but they feel like you were there for them, so they should be there for you. Right. Yep. And so to your point, a trickle campaign, hey, just checking in, seeing how that fence looks. You got anything else that, we used to do these quarterly, which it's funny how this is a different point to make later, but the pandemic made us change how we do business. But now I feel like we're getting back into that. So pre-pandemic, we would do a quarterly follow-up. Hey, just want to check in, see if there's anything else, see how the fence looked, make sure it's awesome. By the way, did you know we do free gate repairs or free gate adjustments? We'd be glad to send the guys out to adjust your gate, that sort of thing. Also, if there's any other projects, I'd love to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, automated. I can't tell you how much revenue that automated email brought in only because we were trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
Checking in. Did you know we offer a free service that most everyone either doesn't do or they charge you a lot for? And then also, by the way, you got anything else around the house? We would get a fair amount of, hey, everything's fine. Appreciate you checking in, that sort of thing. We'd get some, hey, we're ready to do this other line, or we're ready, whatever, or we moved and we've been thinking about a fence. But what's interesting is the third thing we got a lot of, or the third area of comment we got is, I don't, but my neighbor's been talking about getting a fence. I should connect you guys.
Yeah.
Referral, right? Like I'm sure you've got the numbers, but the close rate on a referral or a recommendation has to be significantly higher than a cold call or a cattle call.
Yeah, so we use JobNimbus as our CRM. We have some great automations, and I need to touch on what Alex said just so we can go over this real quick. But so my close rate on repeat is about 85%, and my referrals are 70 to 75%. And what's crazy about repairs is if you have systems and processes in place, so, okay, I'm going to go do a repair. Well, I'm going to go drop a fence sign in your yard, and I'm going to tell you how to pitch that in a second. And I'm going to come do the repair in a couple weeks. The rest of the world thinks you're getting a brand new fence.
Yeah.
Customer acquisition costs and going into Google LSA is so expensive when you pay LSA, but putting a yard sign out and touching hundreds of people, and so Alex, the win there is that they went out on a repair quote and it really didn't make a whole lot of sense. And so they ended up selling a $15,000 job. They built value. You got to sell out value, of course.
Yep.
But he's put together this repair division.
I love that.
Trickle campaign and JobNimbus and other CRMs out there have that to keep in touch with your clients, because yes, it doesn't make sense to put a human involved with that daily, but you could easily set up a nice campaign, show people you care. And that's interesting. You nailed that. People are all going through whatever we're going through right now. And the world is so fast that it's more of it faster. And so you got to show that you truly care. And so it's nice little fillers and everything like that. And so while this isn't about doing repairs, it's also about margin. And so we got to keep in mind, I ran the numbers. So we have an $8 million goal. We wanted more, but we sized it down. By the way, Fence fam, we are down. We've been chasing a $1.2 million deficit all year. We put our head down, played our game, and we're about $500K away from being back on track. I guarantee we'll get back on track. One, because I'm super stubborn, but two, I'm willing to put in the work. And that's what it boils down to, the scarcity versus abundant mindset, and specifically about accountability. You can roll over and let the election be your excuse, but think about from an employee standpoint. When people give you excuses as an owner, you hate it. Yep. So listen, we know what the problem is that it's in a down year or an election year. How are we going to solve it? We are going to meet people where they need to be met. And so, people aren't buying because of financing or because of money or rates or whatever. Educate yourself on that. Rates are actually really where they probably should be. And I don't want to get into an economic debate, y'all. I understand that depending on where you are and exactly what you sell, but inflation is really pretty low right now. It's 2.5% last month. Incredible. Last year was only 3.67, but prices are up 21% still from the pandemic. So we still have some of that, but you can't come and tell me that election year, down year, if you don't have those facts to support it.
Sure.
So if Magnolia Fence only grows at 3% this year, perfect. We're staying with inflation. It means we're not going backwards. Joe, I've seen your average. You're averaging somewhere around 10% growth year over year. Yep. Some years better, some years worse.
Sure.
That's a safe spot to be when you have an established business. So I'm curious to see how you're comparing. And of course, inflation rates depend on where you're at. And I'm not suggesting that all of this matters. At the end of the day, play the game you know how to play.
Well, these are all independent data sources, right? Like they are data points, right? But they're all, you need to look at them as a whole, right? And to your point, being in different areas, so we always like to say in the Midwest, we're a bit insulated from what happens in the larger markets, right? East, West Coast, Gulf Coast. You see, now we don't ride the roller coaster all the way to the top, right? Because you hear about some peak market activity out there that we just don't see. But so far, I'm knocking on wood, we also don't see the dramatic dips. For example, 2007, 8, 9. It kind of hit people differently depending, but we had some rough years, right? Like we had some lean years. I got a second job at Lowe's in the building materials section just to offset, whatever our downturn was doing to the company. But we didn't see it shake out. I say shake out, bankrupt companies here locally as much as you saw on the coast. But again, you're closer to your market is significantly bigger than our market. And so maybe what this data is doing, looking at this numbers, maybe what I'm believing is a falsehood by saying we're insulated. If you're in my businesses are only 1% or a couple percent, depending on which month we're looking at, off, maybe here's what this whole thing is us repeating what we were told when we were young. Right? So election year is one. Well, it's an election year, so, we got to plan for that, which we felt, listen, at Ozark Fence, we fell into that trap of saying, hey, when we're forecasting, we got to forecast a down year. Like it's just, we've got to look at it that way that, we're probably going to be slow, whatever slow is, right? Because we're also rolling out of a pandemic. So I'm a firm believer that 2020, 21, 22 don't matter. In terms of finance, I think you gotta pull those out because business was just different. I mean, for example, you could fall into work without marketing, right? Yep. Like a lot of guys turned their marketing off or at least dialed it way down. We were one of them because we couldn't keep up with the demand because we're also having staffing issues. Supply issues. Everyone is having problems. But when we look at things now, obviously they're different, but we said that in the beginning of the year because that's what I'd always been told about election year. Now, as a business owner, I've been through a couple election years so far, and I didn't pick up on the fact that they don't matter to us financially in terms of top-line revenue. Now, one of the nice things is when you forecast for a down year and it's not a down year, it's an even better year. You know what I mean? But I think we fall into these falsities that election year, and again, me saying this whole thing, we're insulated from the coast when we look at your and I's data. Now, also, I think we also need to realize these are 2 data points, right? Like it's not a lot, but I think they're 2 very interesting data points because we're so different.
And that's part of, and I don't normally plug coaching. Actually, I never have plugged coaching, but I look at 16 to 20 people's data points. So I wouldn't be on the show if I haven't seen a trend. What was crazy about that trend is I don't know you very well, and it was identical. I helped these people grow their consistency. So naturally, there should be some trends, but I didn't have anything to do with your numbers.
Yeah.
I want to touch on several different things that you mentioned. So 2008, if you go do the research in 2008, Costco, Walmart, some of the big people, we'll just leave it at that, made substantial changes in their business and took them from million to billion. And everyone's like, well, that's different. They're corporate. Scarcity mindset versus abundant mindset. So what's the difference in 2008? Well, they were not busy anymore, so they could work on their business, not in it. And I think when the phone doesn't ring, you can do a couple of different things. You can either say, hey, I'm going to just be busy by trying to throw mud at the wall and hope it sticks, or I'm going to work on a system and process. So right now, and I have a bigger infrastructure, so I get it. If you're 1 to 2 people, you got to do all hacks. But right now, we've for 3 years, we've used ArcSight and never used it to the full potential. Well, I'm not nearly as busy as I have. So I was like, hey, we're going to solve this, and it's going to solve our procurement process and X, Y, and Z. So we're working on things that when we get busy again, will create efficiencies, which kind of gets me into my next thing. Most people think of busy in a few different ways. well, I'm used to being backlogged 8 weeks. I'm only 4. And I tell people I'm only 1 week, and they're like, "Oh, I couldn't imagine. How do you do not have that much business?" I said, "I have more crews than you." And
Sure.
here's the thing: backlog is based off of how many people you have.
Right.
And what Sean is doing in the industry, bringing new efficiencies. I have less people. I'm not as busy. We've replaced a person with a post pounder. We've replaced a person with a skid steer or whatever. And I'm not saying replace people. That's not at all what I'm saying.
Sure.
But as they leave, you don't have to replace them.
Right. Or you can do more with the same people.
Exactly. You don't make them as tired. Yeah, they can go longer stretches. So the backlog is shrinking. The group of people is shrinking. What Alex said, backlogs are roadblocks. I mean, backlogs, like, you should want your money today because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I read a post. Someone said, "Hey, it was like a $30,000 job. They didn't invoice for it because there was one little punch list item. I'm all about doing draws if you get hung up, and now the person doesn't have money." Things come up. I don't care what you have in regards to your contract. You can't pull money out of someone's hand. You just physically can't. And so someone's like, "Hey, if I could get all the work done, what would I do next week?" And I'm like, "We'll worry about that when we get there." But people work better under pressure. That's how diamonds are made. Now, going back to election year, what people should be concerned about and what they should be talking about is taxes. If something doesn't change in the next 2 years, the tax rate is going to go up. It really doesn't matter who gets voted in presidency, but the tax rate. So what you should be looking at during election years is, how should I allocate my depreciation? Should I be making equipment and deferring my depreciation to 2026 when taxes are going to go up 2.5%? Can I go ahead and pay because now, or what's the dollar doing? And so I just feel like people really need to look at, are we using that as an excuse to just take a break? And that's fine too. Hey, it's going to be kind of a crappy year. I'm just going to go work on my family. I'm going to go work on working out. Cool. So Gus said that the other day. I was like, "Gus, you're always in the gym." He's like, "Man, I'm not going to chase bad business. I'm going to work on me. I'm going to work on me. I'm going to feel better, look better, and I'm going to be ready when it comes back." And so somebody asked about inventory. Your inventory should, in theory, go with cash flow. Our cash flow, we can turn cash in 85 days. So we've learned a way to stretch cash 85 days. So we can't turn inventory in 85 days. We're paying interest on it in theory. And by the way, if y'all have a whole bunch of money in y'all's bank accounts and it's not going anywhere, put it in a money market and make 4 to 5%.
Yep. Money in a savings account loses value depending on what that savings account pays.
You can have a long-term savings account, but then there's restrictions of pulling out. But money market right now, oh my goodness, they're paying like 4.25. Short-term CDs at 6 months are paying 5.25. It's the best it's ever been. So while yes, it's maybe down here, go make some money on your money.
Yeah, and both of those numbers, to go back to, are higher than inflation. Yeah, right? That's really what you're wanting, is something higher than inflation. Because if your money sits, and this is a whole finance discussion, but if your money sits in a checking account, which gains no interest or little interest, depending on where you're at, you're losing money.
Yeah.
Right. Because interest, or it's going to start getting chewed away, right? Because of inflation. Putting it somewhere that has any number higher than inflation is good. Now, like all things, the higher the better. But yeah, at 0%, you're losing money. Is kind of the point there, to put a pin in there.
Yeah, and so we're so proud. This month, like in 2 days, actually on Monday, will be my last loan payment on a $423,000 bad debt. We've been paying $13,000 a month. What that basically breaks down to is about $150,000 in revenue a month that I've had to pay. The profit of it had to pay that down.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked, right? Someone's like, "Cool, we're going to pay down some other loans." I was like, "Well, the problem is you pay down a loan, you can't get that cash back." Yeah. So I have a money market paying 4%. My highest loan right now is 8%. So I'm like, well, let's put it in the money market. Now we've reduced the cost of that loan by 4%. Yeah. It's a 4% loan, and we can work with that. And so this isn't a whole finance talk, but this is all about compounding. And I always like to kind of bring this back. Joe, you and I, whatever our game plan is, we stick to it. So if you see Alabama, let's say they're a running team. I don't know if they are or not, but let's just say they're a running team, and they get behind by 21 points. They don't just say, "Oh my gosh, we have to Hail Mary every single time." They keep running the ball, and they play the full 60 minutes. And if they lose, at least they have predictable data and can go back and fix it. Texas Tech, on the other hand, that's where I went to school, we're an air raid team. So we're always going to be throwing it no matter what. And that's almost why we don't do well, is because we don't beat up the defense. We get them off the field very quickly. But if we change the game, we don't have great runners. And so you got to play the game you're in. You got to play the full 60 minutes, which is 4 quarters. In our case, you got to see the entire year through. And I think this is probably the most important part. If people don't look at a rolling instead of so if you want to look at a quarter, look at a rolling quarter. Look at the last 13. Don't look at the quarter you're in. Look at 13 weeks overall. Look at a rolling 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have way better data. And then I think the last piece of this that I think, because you and I both ran the numbers, if you don't have enough data to pull, because a lot of people did start their business in the pandemic,
sure,
call somebody who has enough data that
right.
uses their data. And so I just think that an abundance mindset eliminates the excuses. And a scarcity mindset will limit you on anything that you want to do in your world. And that's not where I'm living.
No. And here's the thought process that I go through is, and I can't tell you where I heard this, but it made sense to me, that if you wake up in the morning and you're like, man, today's going to be a rough day. I bet I'm going to get to work. Somebody's going to say something. It's going to set me off, and that's going to ruin the rest of my day, and I'm probably going to have to work late, and I'm probably going to da-da-da-da-da-da. You look for those things, right? So first point, somebody's going to say something. So you're just looking around. Who's going to say it? Yeah. And then somebody says something that isn't even offhand. Like it's not even, but you're like, that was it. Yeah. This whole thing's coming true. Now it's going to be a rough day, and you make it rough. Yeah. Right. And you work 2 minutes over because you're in the middle of a project and it makes more sense to finish it than start it tomorrow. And you're like, knew I was going to have to work late today. And you go home carrying all that baggage, right? Trash day. Man, I tell you what, I bet tomorrow's going to be more of the same. And it probably is.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Or you wake up in a great mood, right? Now, here's another thing. A lot of successful people have morning routines that puts them in this mood. Like, I don't know. I'm sure some people are. I don't hop out of bed, right? Just like yawning and greeting the morning as the sun comes up. It's just not me. But, there's some steps in place where it's like, okay, get mindful and think about what's coming up for the day. And after I heard this, I was like, what are some things that are going to go right today? Well, we're going to show up ahead of time so I can get ready. That's it within my control, right? First thing we do is we have a morning meeting with all the guys. Like, that's going to go well. Here's 2 or 3 things I need to talk about with them today, what's going on today. And then lo and behold, you go through the day looking for wins, right? Like, knew it, showed up early, no traffic. Even if it's heavy traffic, I leave early. So it's like, I knew it, showed up early. Today's going to be a good day. Roll into the meeting, hit the 3 things. Like, man, that went well, just like I figured it would. And so then I go home and like, another win. Now, here's the funny thing. His wife's like, how was your day? It was great. What'd you do? Couldn't tell you. I don't know. Like, I'm going to have to sit here and think about what all went on today, but I know it was a good one because, you go looking for things that you think are going to happen, I guess is the point.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I don't know any negative mindset or thought yielding positive results. And I'm right now I'm super into the data. On average, a human has 60,000 thoughts a day. You know how many of those thoughts are negative? 75% of them, without you having to fabricate it on your own.
Oh.
Is this person going to hit me? Should I stop at the light? Am I going to be running late? Is that a real stop, or is somebody going to pull me over? 75% of your thoughts are naturally negative anyways.
And they don't need any help.
Yeah, they don't need any help. And so like when people are like, I'm having a bad fourth quarter. Let me newsflash. There's only 11 weeks in Q4. How is that even possible, Robert, where you lose Thanksgiving and Christmas? It's not, you just made up a story to make you feel better. I'm telling you, you're working on 11 weeks. Joe, oh my God, we're like made for each other, man. You track how many working days are left in a year because that's important. So, and you say we got to do X amount of dollars in a working. Well, what would affect a working day? Holidays, vacations, rain days. We used to look at the almanac to say, hey, if we have more than a quarter inch of rain or how many days drop below 32 degrees, not that we're not willing to work in 32, but concrete won't set up if you're still a wet setter. We do patios. And shingles for roofs shouldn't go on for under 50 degrees. So we look at that. And so I think everyone builds their budgets based off of, well, there's 30 days in a month. No, there's not. There's 20 to 22 working days in a month for starters. And out of that, you have to figure out how many PTO days are given and everything like that. And that's why people do blackout dates in X, Y, and Z. So there's 11 weeks in flash in Q4. So if you have a sales goal of, let's say, 40,000 a week, it's got to go up in Q4 because you got 2 weeks that you're probably not going to make the same stuff.
Absolutely.
Corey had to jump in on the good mood. How do you deal with profitable commercial that is always a disaster and hurts morale?
I'm trying to understand the question. With profitable commercial, so like a commercial division maybe, but that is always a disaster and hurts morale. Corey, if you could clarify that, because I think it's an interesting conversation. So there's a lot of people that enjoy commercial. I was talking to a guy about buying some fence fittings, shameless plug for moseyfence.store, and they do almost all commercial. They've gotten out of residential completely. They're kind of down there in your neck of the woods. But he was saying, he's like, man, he goes, I love commercial because it's not emotional. It is, did you meet the spec? Did you meet the timeline? You know, were there any, whatever? Those were basically two things: meet the spec and meet the timeline. Then you did a good job and you get paid. Now, there's going to be holdouts and there's going to be, okay. But largely, because my point was on residential, we had this happen a couple years ago where, you know, we killed this project. So proud of this thing, man. It was really nice and well done. She comes out and it's kind of one of those compliment sandwiches, right? And you can see one of those coming. So you know, like I still don't want what's in the middle. Like no. But, you know, fence looks great. Your guys did great. They were so hard workers. It just wasn't, I wish it would have been a little different. Oh, okay. Well, let me pull up. I mean, shout out Job Nimbus. We've got tablet. Let me pull out job notes, scope of work. Okay. Well, where were we off? You know, where were your expectations versus reality? Where were we off? Well, I just don't know. It's just, I really wish it'd been different. Like, well, I can't work with that. I don't know. Like, I can't get in your mind and just magic wand this thing into reality. But you see that more on residential. Like on commercial, we never hear a project manager like, guys, listen, I just really thought this thing would be different. No, they're all like, this was the spec. It's black. Did you meet it? Yes. Pat on the back. Get out of here. Or if you didn't meet it, now we've got to correct and bring it back up to standard, right? Or it's same thing with timeline. Now with timeline, Matt Warner has a great talk on documenting all the rain days, documenting this, having an actual timeline ready to go for the general on, hey, here's where we are. But anyway, so commercial typically is less emotional than residential.
So Corey cleaned that up for us.
Yeah.
But before we do,
okay.
I was going to answer Corey's response a little differently.
Okay.
And then he clarified, so we'll get two ways to answer it.
You bet.
If people morale is hurt, almost always it's a misalignment of vision. You have not clearly defined your vision. Why are we working? And then he cleaned up for a really bad GC.
Right.
Well, we have not clearly defined that. So I'll give you a really good example. So I'm working with Matt Warner and USS, their netting stuff, and we're working on some sports fields. We could have the worst time out there, but our passion as kids, so we love sports fields. Like, we're all in now. Like, I was like, you know what a cool way to connect with kids. So sports fields. And USS and Empire and all them, they have expectations. They're really good at what they do. And so they're tough bosses, right? But it totally aligns with our vision, which is to get into commercial, but not all commercial. We want to get into commercial that gives us energy. Because we already got a great residential business. So everyone's like, well, why would we do commercial and distract us from what works? And I'm like, no, we just want to do a portion of the commercial that makes sense, and we can start building these bigger jobs. to start developing more strategic planning and X, Y, and Z. And so going to general contractors is we don't work for anybody other than local. We want local GCs. So that aligns with my vision. So you're not going to treat people the same way if you're a national firm versus a local. I don't care what you say.
Sure.
National firms, they are more price conscious. They're more about the timetable, while local ones care more about maybe the relationship. And this is broad.
Yeah.
So if your vision isn't clearly defined, and that's kind of going back to run the ball, throw the ball. If you see on the internet, and I'm not saying this is your case, Corey, but you see on the internet that commercial is, because it's doing pretty well. This year, a lot of commercial people are not seeing it because commercial is different, right? Because anyways, and I got a story on that. But if you are a residential or run the ball person, and then all of a sudden you want to get in the commercial world because that's where it seems to be profitable, your team's going to be confused. So kind of going back to the positive, negative mindset is we might be perceiving that the GC is not actually good when he's actually just as good. That's just the world we live in.
Sure.
And so I think vision is extremely important. Corey, I don't know your business well enough to be able to, but if your alignment and vision and people don't share that vision with you, then it's going to hurt morale. And then also identifying who you're going after. So we have we're very clear. We want to work for schools and we want to work for sports fields because that aligns with kiddos, and that's kind of our passion. Yep. So we can have a bad day because we know that kids are going to be laughing and having fun on the field.
Yep. So. Well, and Corey, for us, so yeah, I agree with you on the local contractors, Robert. It's just the relationship's different. There is a relationship, whereas with national, typically not. But two, we don't work with all of them, right? Like we know the ones that we like to work with. Like their management style matches our management style, and whether it could be with superintendents out on the project or whether it could be office just processes, how invoices are processed and payments are processed and all that. I mean, we do more direct to the customer. Even in commercial, we're calling them the customer, right? Rather than go through GCs, because like you, there's a lot of them that just don't match our desire, match our business model, match our desires of who we want to work with. Now for every rule, there's an exception, right? So we're in the middle of one right now. With a large outdoor retail store that they have a general on a project that we don't typically work with, but they said, hey, they gave this general contractor, which I love this a lot, a list of preferred vendors. Like, these are people that we do business with. These are people that we like. We know their quality. They meet our standards, da-da-da-da-da. So General calls us. At first, they're just like, hey, we've got a bid. Can we send it over? Like, well, you're not like on our bidders list that people we usually bid with. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? They're like, yeah, well, we've got a project for so-and-so. Okay, you got it. Like, so there are exceptions to the rule, but largely we do work with 2, 3, 4 generals here in the area out of maybe a dozen, because those are guys that align with what we're, just what we're about, how we like to operate.
I love the way you put that. So Benji made our website, and one of his systems and processes is using Monday.com.
Yes.
So I love the word disaster. It could be potentially a disaster if you don't use the platform he's created to systemize getting information. I'm not saying it is. He's freaking great behind his emails. But ideally, you use his platform. So if you don't want to learn another software, or you don't want to operate in Monday, then it's not going to be the same. And so, Corey, I'm not suggesting that that's what's going on there, but definitely making sure you have clear vision and expectations of the type of person you want to work for. I also got to thinking about this. I had this client, John Houston Homes, right? So this was really cool. And obviously a lot larger, Corey, or Magnolia. Well, we're doing it on the purple level. He brought in John Maxwell, and invited every one of his vendors and all their employees and said, I want you to be better leaders so you can do better for me. And so he spent years pouring into his vendors to get better. So if you have a bad GC, maybe help him understand why he's a bad GC. Let me explain to you our system process. How, anytime there's an event, like, I don't know, an AFA event or FWA event that is in your city, bring that GC there so you can understand it's not nearly what he perceived it to be. So we're bringing in Stephen Covey. I've got the book right here because I think there's a huge level of trust right now going on in our world and everything else. He's coming to my facility in January, and we're bringing in vendors like Master Halco, Wood Defender. All of them are going to come here, and they're going to soak it in because all things happen faster when you trust somebody.
Yep.
So what better way than to show and educate the people I'm working with that if we can keep trust, everything else is fine. So I also encourage people to not expect for GCs to do something for you or for GCs or anybody for that matter to be doing their own education.
Sure.
So hey, let me share a podcast with you that I thought would be good. And so anyways, and then we could go on and on and on about that. Joe, I know you're going to kick me off the show in a couple of minutes, so I wanted
you're
to go
fine.
back to the numbers.
Yes, absolutely.
If you don't mind. So I was listening to an economist talk. This is pretty crazy. So the Economist, the actual publication, is really, really old. It's the most prestigious form of information. Most of us probably don't read most of the Economist Journal. Most of us probably don't read the actual excerpts because it's like brainiac stuff.
Deep.
To be published in there once ever is incredible. To be published twice or three times, unheard of. So they did a study, and you would naturally think Yale, Duke, some of these big Ivy League schools, 4 to 5 publishes. Wow. If you want to be published in the Economist, you should go to these schools. They went ahead and went to the 30 decent schools, but definitely lower, state schools. They also had 5 published. So what they did,
interesting.
This is interesting. Those were all coming from the top 0.01% of the class. So it didn't matter what school you were, there was the human.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with the schooling. It got very, very separated, 5, 10, 20% class. Yes, Yale would produce more publications. And if y'all are following me on this, the human controls the numbers if you're at the top of your class. The surroundings, based off this, will control your numbers if you're at the bottom of your class. And so my challenge to people, and the reason I have this burning hole in me, is if you are going to be part of the bottom class saying, hey, I have a scarcity mindset, your numbers will be controlled by things that are being controlled. Or you could be at the top 0.5% of your class, just like these economists, and whether it be Duke or Texas Tech, you're going to publish 5 because you're the leader. And so, Joe, I firmly believe you're a leader in the fence world and industry and in your community. And that's why your numbers and my numbers match up, is because you and I wake up to win every single day. And we're going to sell stuff that people want to buy, but we're going to do it through integrity. And I think that's the last part. So you can have the greatest strategy in the world, but if nobody wants it, who cares?
Who cares?
And so I just want to really make sure, go Google that. That is, well, it's hard to find actually, but it's incredible to think that no matter what school you go to, if you are the winner in your class, you will publish. And I'm like, that's why we're where we're at. So.
Well, and so it's interesting how all this stuff kind of plugs in, right? And I want to back up for a second because I've been thinking about this when I said we were planning on a down year, because then I also heard myself say, when you wake up in the morning and look for negative things, you see negative things, right? So that was part of the conversation was, hey, we got planned for a good year, which means we got to sell our faces off. We got to bump marketing and advertising. We can't drop the ball all year long. Like, listen, I know it's going to get hot this summer. It always does, but we're not going to slow down. We're not going to use a mid-year siesta. We got to push, and we got to push every week. We operate on the assumption we're going to get about 48 weeks. So we got 48 weeks. Easiest way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time, right? So let's look at this now. And so what was funny is, so we already track by quarter percentages of sales by quarter. So I say, hey, listen, we know first quarter, and I'm just, whatever the number is, 21%. We got this chunk of change to sell this quarter. All right, well, let's break it down by the week, by the day. That means we need to sell on average whatever it is, $18,000 a day. Okay, well that's our big hairy goal. We got to accomplish it, right? And then, but we went looking for wins, I guess is the point, is we went looking for sales. Like, hey, it's out there. Like, look, we've done the analysis on our market. This is all out there. I'm not giving you guys crazy goals. Like, they are attainable. Now you're going to have to work for it. We got to hustle, but we can get it, right? And then lo and behold, we're trending ahead of schedule for the year because we also, in our market, we didn't see a down year. Now, so, and I don't know. So the question up above was, so we're seeing average ticket price being lower, smaller jobs, more repairs. So let me say this. Depends on when you look at. But so now if you compare 20, 21, 22, our average ticket was about $9,500. Now, since then, we're at about $8,700. So you're like, see, knew it. Average ticket price is down. Now, when you compare 2017, 18, 19, our average ticket price was about $7,800. So overall, our ticket price is up, which makes sense, right? Because materials cost more, labor costs more. Our average ticket price should be up. And I would also love it if it were higher. But I think it depends on what you look at, what time frame you look at as to is it up or down, right? Is it larger or smaller? Also, we talked about phones being quiet. Advertising and marketing isn't a gas pedal that you step on and it goes, right? So think about it in like a normal combustion engine. I say that so electric cars, you press the pedal and you go. Bingo. You have almost instantaneous access to all the torque that motor has. With a normal traditional vehicle, you press the gas pedal, it's going to take a little while for the RPMs to come up. Maybe it's got a turbo that's got a spool, whatever it is you love to drive. It's like that, right? When you press the gas, you don't go. It builds, and then maybe it's a turbo, and then the turbo hits, and then you're off to the races, right? So if we had started marketing in June and July, May, then we likely wouldn't have started seeing a large amount of leads come in until right around now, right? About 3 months, thereabouts. So, or we would have seen it come in last month, whatever it is. We started in January. Now, you also have to consider we don't spend the same amount in January as we do in June, right? We also kind of break that down by quarter and by month. But we started marketing in the wintertime knowing that, hey, we're going to be slower this year than we were in last year, we think. So that means we need to pour more into marketing and advertising, pour more into going to these local events, right? The Republic, Missouri's Chamber Show, the Springfield, Missouri Chamber Show, all these chamber shows. We're going to one next month. What is it called? I don't know. It's a Halloween themed pet day. It's Pets and Pumpkins or something, like Pups and Pumpkins or something. Never done this before, but 3 things to keep a fence company in business that does residential: kids, pets, bad neighbors or neighbors, right? So if pets is number 2, sometimes it could be, maybe those aren't ranked, I don't know. But if pets is in our top 3, let's market to pets. Well, the pets don't buy a fence. So next best thing, pet owners. Let's find those folks. So we had that goal going into the year, like, let's find these events. And Sarah's like, hey, I got this. It's a pet group here in town. They put on 2 or 3 events a year. We already did one, massive success. Let's do another one. Like, let's Pets and Pumpkins. We're in. Sign us up. But we're doing more, I guess, is the point, to keep our call volume up.
Yeah. And if you say more, but probably less of a different also at some times, right? Depending, you're shifting focuses. Like,
sure.
So we did this pet thing. I'm sure everyone's seen it by now. We will pay for your dog boarding while we build your fence. We've eliminated that smoke screen. Everyone's like, you're going to go bankrupt.
So good.
I'm like, you know how many people have actually used it? None. But everybody buys off that. Everyone's like, yeah, that's
Really?
great. I'll probably use it. And then they realize it's really not that inconvenient because we show up on time. We do what we say we're going to do. So we've actually offered it to all the neighbors. So, hey,
Okay.
I want to show one thing real quick because I know you're going to take me off. Hold on. Let me. I got to undo my blurred screen real quick.
You got it.
So you were talking about work harder. So that the job made us these on a sales. We knew it was going to be a ground and pound fighting kind of year. So we named ourselves Fence Fighters. And part of being like a UFC fighter, specifically one who plays on the ground, you're going to get hit in the face. It just depends if you hit the other person harder, right? Also behind me,
I love this part.
because I'm a visual person, I went ahead and picked up the remaining $3 million. I seen you have a countdown, so do we. This is our countdown.
I like that a lot.
Meet your salespeople where they're at. It's demoralizing when you get no's, but it's pretty awesome to be handed $20,000. And now it's fake money, but this has turned into such a fun thing. Everyone's walking around with money bags. I had somebody yesterday be like, "Hey, you jit me $100." I'm like, "Well, I was like, I was in a hurry or whatever." They're chasing this one. This is $80,000 fake gold bar. But my goal is like, it's super cool when you're winning Scrabble and you pull the last deal because you already know. You the man.
Yep.
And so get more creative. Like, be where your people need you to be, whether it be vendors or customers or employees. People need to see it's going to be okay. And so, anyways, I just thought I'd show the visuals.
I love that a lot. When you had showed me that before, I was like, that is perfect. Like a representation, a stack on a desk of that's me this year. Like, that's where I'm at. I want my stack to be bigger. So and also, it probably lets the team know, hey, we ought to pitch in and help so-and-so. Like, maybe there's whatever.
Yeah, they hang their bags. I didn't tell them what to do with it. I love the book, Who Not How. And they hung the bags, and they, like, have their money, like, overflowing. And so, yes, visually. But I didn't know what I was going to do, but I ended up putting behind me for, like, I think a podcast or a picture. I love it because now I get to hand out the money on every sale. So I get to personally thank them, high five them. I love how Matt Warner says, make that physical fist pump. Mm-hmm. And so just got to play the game a little different. I'm not changing the game altogether. Just do a little flea flicker every once in a while. Like you said, go to a couple of events. People are like, well, people aren't spending money more. What do you mean? They're not going out to dinner, so they're not going to buy a fence. You know what they are doing? They're going to their HOA event that doesn't cost any money. That's their date night. So go where they are.
Yep.
And so, anyways, oh my goodness, I could talk.
We should talk about that on another podcast. Your HOA deal.
Yeah, it was great. I know you wanted me to talk about that originally, but I think
we could say, because I feel like that's going to be an entire thing.
This is such a critical topic that I want people to understand that yes, and if your market is highly affected by the government, we need to look at your business and make you recession proof.
Yep.
People are like, well, in Texas. Well, then move to Texas. I don't know what to tell you. I wouldn't start a business ever again without looking at the multiplier that people pay on EBITDA and making sure it's an essential business so people in government couldn't shut my business. Like, thank goodness fencing was essential. But I would never have, like, tech world, or let's say pesticides closest to construction, pays a 12.5% multiplier on EBITDA at sale. Fencing's three times. Who would start a fence company knowing they get 3 times their money than a pest control? I'm not saying we get out of fencing, but I'm just saying, like, if you don't like the market you're in and you can't figure it out, and this, listen, these are just math equations. That's all it is.
Right. Well, or find a way to increase your EBITDA multiplier.
Yeah.
Right. So we've talked before about recurring revenue, which is a component.
Yep. If you had recurring revenue in fencing, it would take it from a 3.15 to a 4.15. And we do valuations every 18 months on our business from a business valuation, because you should know what your business is worth and know how, oh man, we're having a great year. And then the business valuation guy goes, actually, you're worth less than before. Huh? Yeah, because what you did was egotistical. You were doing it because it looked good on paper, but it didn't attract buyers.
Or you're tracking revenue and not net profit.
Yeah. I think
we're having a killer year. Well, you're selling it for less, so you're actually not.
I didn't finish that thought. So
sorry.
Well, no, I forgot to do it. I'm glad you brought it up. So if you do $8 million and drop your price to 30% gross margin, it's the same as doing 40% gross margin at $6 million. I'm not saying you should ever discount. That's not at all.
Sure.
But I'm also not saying you should not discount. But you need to understand the power of one. If you lower or increase by 1% your cost of goods, your price, and your overhead, your net income will actually increase by 19%. It won't become 19. It will increase whatever the bottom line is. So, anyways, we can go into that later. You're gonna kick me off. I already know it.
No. We got time. Because I think this is a good subject, right? So a lot of people hear me talk about 50% gross profit. I think it's an easy number. I think it works. It's easy because you multiply by 2. Now, you multiply total cost. So there's these formulas out there that are left over from, I don't know, my dad or granddad's era that say you take your materials and multiply that by 2 or 3 or something, and then that's okay. But that's not taking into account your payroll cost variance and all that. So total cost, total payroll, hear me, that includes payroll taxes, right? Your payroll burden. So that's that whole pay. Just because you pay a guy $20, depends on your company, depends on your benefits, but maybe add 30% to that to cover your payroll burden. Total payroll on the project, total materials on the project times 2. Now, some people, different reactions to that, right? So some people are like, well, you're ripping people off. At 50%, like you're ripping people off. I didn't say raise your prices to 50% and not bring additional value. No one has ever heard me say that. That is not the point. The point almost becomes, how do you provide so much value that 50% gross profit seems cheap? Right, like seems like a deal. Cheap's probably not the right word, but seems like a deal, right? So what we found, communication is a very big deal. Over communication. And so I'll bring a customer on and we'll talk, and I was like, here's the thing. You're going to get tired of hearing from us. I'm just going to tell you, when the project's over, there's going to be a sigh of relief that the emails stop. But they don't. Right, they will continue to check in on you and see how the fence is doing, but you're not getting a weekly update of, hey, just so we're on track for your project. We're still looking at, now we're in the 6 to 8 week out camp, so that's just where our comfort level is at. So, but that can be a long time, right? So someone gives us, if our average ticket price is $8,700, they're going to give us half of that up front. That's a chunk of change. Right, so we're going to check in every Friday. Hey, just checking in, let you know we're still on schedule to be there the week of October, whatever. Next Friday, guess what? Hey, it's been a great week. We've got a lot done. We're still looking at being to you on this day. So we're checking in weekly. And then it's also, if there's materials to be ordered, if it's a special order, materials ordered, materials received, locate submitted.
All that's automated through Job Nimbus, right?
Yeah. All that's, when it gets put on a board, email goes out.
Yeah, and then each board, Alex has got that, and he's got like 4 weeks out. Hey, you're about 4 weeks out, about 3 weeks, about 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yep. Every Friday we just move them over, unless there's a problem, right? Because then that's also a weekly check-in for us of, has anything not gone right? Now, we also leave a buffer day every week, so we actually plan for 4 days of work a week instead of 5, so that if there's weather or we've had, again, knock on wood, we've had great weather last month. So we're actually working ahead, right? We're looking for projects. Hey, well, this week we had one, it was at a local car wash where all we're doing is stripping off the 2x4s and rails. They had steel posts set in a concrete pad. All we're doing is refacing those. Guys got done Thursday midday. Like, hey, guess what? Friday morning, you're going to be a hero to them because they just signed up a couple of weeks ago, and I told them it'd be late October, early November. Well, all right, so we're able to work ahead. I don't know where I was going with that, but communication, over communication is also, I reached out to this lady and said, hey, great news. We're working ahead of schedule. We're going to be to you Friday. Would that be okay? Who has ever said, you know what? You told me November. I'm going to hold you to that. No, she's like, come on then. Let's get this done. But we make a point to the customers, over communication, you're going to get tired of hearing from us. You don't actually stop hearing from us unless you ask us to stop, and then we'll stop. But here's a question we started asking, Robert, that hopefully someone finds value in. When we're communicating, so I'm telling this to the customer. So when we're communicating, how do you prefer to hear from me? We can do text, we can do phone calls, we can do emails. I know how emails work. They're going to show up in your junk folder, spam folder. You're going to have to search to find them. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't ever see them. So our communication is going to just get lost in the shuffle. How about a call or a text message that you would likely get, sooner than an email? Well, through Job Nimbus's Engage, now we've got a text, and we can set up automations. We can automatically text. I did this with Mark Olson. So not to call you out. You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Me?
Yep.
I'm down.
How many unread emails do you have right now?
So the open rate on emails is 3%. The open rate on text messages is 98%. And also,
that's where we're going.
There's people get 11 personalized pieces of mail a year now. So anyways, I have 140,627 unread emails, and I have 211 unread texts and 347 voicemails. My screen is red.
Well, that didn't go the way I thought it was going to go.
But if you look at Purple Coaching, every single email is read and responded to right away.
Yeah.
Most of that's my personal. If you look at my business email, it's not. I don't know if you were trying to say Robert checks his email. I check all of them when it's Alex Cannon and all that.
No, I'm just. The point I was going to make was, so I've got 105 unread emails. I went through them this morning. There's 105. 102 of those are spam for sure.
Well, that's what these 140,000 is spam. I just don't delete them. I'm getting better, Dakota Marshall.
So I've got 2 unread text messages, one from 10:26, which we're Central Time, the other one from 10:46. So while we're on the show, sorry guys, I'll get back to you in a bit. But the point being, text, to your original point, text have a 98% open rate. And when I was talking to Mark Olson about this, he's like, you know what? And since we've been on here, my pocket has vibrated twice. So I know I've got 2 text messages, and my skin is crawling for me to get into those texts and figure out what they are. And no one, listen, if I had a buzzer for emails, I wouldn't have a phone anymore.
Yeah.
This thing would just get chucked.
So they were talking about what iWatches had done to people. If you have it on the alert, because it basically keeps you always stimulated. And that's why they were talking about 21 times is what it takes before somebody actually absorbs the info. It's because our world is so stimulated now. My office phone has rang multiple times since we're here. Guess what?
Yeah.
They're getting an auto text message saying, sorry we missed you, fill out the intake form X, Y, and Z. And Job Nimbus is smart enough that if that phone number is in my Job Nimbus, it's sending them a completely different text.
Interesting.
Yeah, a whole nother podcast.
We got to dive into that.
Yeah. Hey, I got to give one plug for my outdoor workshop real quick, because
you bet.
If you want to sell things that people want to buy, so we're getting people telling us no on fencing, and they say, but come back out and do patio. Listen, it's another room in their home. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not suggesting that fencing isn't it. It is. It's our bread and butter, but you got to continue, like you're selling online, right?
Uh-huh.
So in January, we do our annual kickoff, and all the Purple Coaching clients are coming in, but I'm opening it up for everybody Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I'm doing a full-blown outdoor workshop. I'm teaching people how to build it, sell it, and manage it. And when I'm talking about managing, I'm talking mainly about the liability. So we're going to be pouring concrete, but we're not going to do like real big, because we have a lot to cover. So if anyone's interested in expanding their services, we're doing low voltage lighting, heaters, electric, drainage, shingles, poly roof. Being in the Metroplex, almost every supplier is out of DFW. But this gentleman, my keynote speaker, is going to kick us off. And here's something interesting about the reason why I picked him is, you probably are the most trusted name in fencing, but you're not in patio or outdoor construction. And that is a huge knock on your ego, but it also back here aligning with vision. If your team doesn't trust that you're taking you to the next level and you're not putting your business at risk, then they're not on board, and you're not burning the boats, which we can go into a whole nother deal. And so he's going to kick off that about being able to build trust and inspire people. Because if you just tell people to do outdoor living, that's command and control. And if you trust and inspire, you'll multiply your vision. Oh my goodness, instead of just add to it. So 3 days, gonna get a high level, but like teach you how to sell it, build it, touch it, feel it, understand it, and then you'll find parts of the outdoor construction world that will complement your business. I've used to own a landscape company. I'm a licensed irrigator. I push snow. I know every facet of income when it comes to outdoor construction. And so we're going to spend 3 days doing that and seeing if it will align with people's annual plans. So even going into like, what does a trade show booth looks like? Because it's completely different than a fence booth.
Yep.
So anyways, that's my shameless plug.
No, I love it.
And I would love for people to reach out. We're only going to fill 40 spots because my conference room comfortably fits 40. It's going to be freaking good. It's $1,500 for purple coaching people and $2,500 if you're not part of the team.
Nice. Where can people learn more or sign up?
Just go to purplecoaching.com would be the best. And then just fill it out. I'm going to start publishing some stuff. I'm giving everybody at Purple Coaching opportunity to sign up first. And I imagine we're going to have about 10 spots. A couple of people, I'm not going to announce them yet because I don't have permission. I've already signed up outside of the group because they are really hungry to add additional services, but don't want to ruin their business in, the whole PhD in learning. So anyways, it's going to be good. It's going to be more tactical than I'm familiar with, but it's also going to be talking about, hey, if this is something you're interested in, are we going to look at a Q4, maybe 2026? People like always think it has to be now. Let's put it in your 10-year plan. You talked about your big, very audacious goal. Let's put it in the future. So anyways, it's going to be pretty awesome. I can't wait. It's January 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. But even if you just come for the keynote, Stephen Covey is an absolute rock star. And so Job Nimbus is actually going to be there too. So they're going to be having a think tank. So they're going to bring a couple of their people in. And when people step out, if they want to work on their Job Nimbus and optimize it. And then the last piece of that is you can't double your service without adding people. But before you add people, I'm going to bring in an AI specialist, an AI consultant to show people how they can integrate AI into their business to minimize the amount of humans. I love humans, but humans is the only thing that cause drama in business. Only thing.
Yeah.
So we can create. Now, the problem with AI is it can't actually think. Once it's thought of, AI can then do it. And so I'm going to bring in an AI consultant to help people understand how to optimize parts of their business.
That's fantastic.
So anyways, this is going to be pretty gnarly. Alex is giving me that thought on the AI because he has fully optimized his outdoor living. So you can't even tell it's not a distraction. It's almost like mailbox money in his sense because he's optimized it the way he wants to optimize it. He didn't build a business on how he had to do it. It's how he gets to do it. And oh man, Alex is badass. Can I say badass on here?
Yeah. Well, it's out now. Might as well.
Yeah.
No. So Purple Coaching, for more information and sign up. Obviously, you guys, if this is a thought at all, you need to get on it because it doesn't sound like there's going to be a ton of spots available.
No, there's not. We'll do something later down the road, but not. Yeah, and then Tony Thorne's one of my really close friends. He's really close, or his event in December is really close to you. So you're gonna be there.
I'm gonna speak at it. Yep.
So am I.
Heck yeah. It's actually only 45 minutes away.
I've seen that, and that's why I want to bring it up. Love Tony. Want to give him a plug. I'm going to be talking about campsites and snorkeling.
Campsites and snorkeling. I'm trying to figure out what I want to talk about. Like I've got some ideas, but it'd be interesting.
The purple cow theory.
Purple cow theory.
Yeah, just look it up.
I'm
going to be talking about campsites and snorkeling. I can't wait.
Campsites and snorkeling.
Yeah,
this is going to be a great event too. I mean, this winter is shaping up to be a winter of just great events. So, starting off, the next thing we've got on the calendar, obviously Shangri-La, the Midwest AFA. But then following that, AFA is having a fence installation school in Tulsa in November.
There. I'm actually on the tool bag, dude. I'm doing fence installation school with Dan Wheeler. We're going to be
excellent
fencing.
I love it. We're going to be covering it. We're just going to be doing videos so that the if you can't get there, you still see Robert building some fence.
And Apex Fence is going to be doing, I think, the iron. So there's some awesome dudes. I'm sure Alan is coming in from SWI.
Yep, I bet
Alan
so.
is a phenomenal teacher. If y'all ever get a chance to be taught underneath Alan, oh my goodness, Alan Olson,
Yeah,
unbelievable.
great person first
Yeah,
off, but also great professional.
yeah,
It's going to be at Ameristar this year. So Tulsa, Oklahoma, Ameristar. If you haven't been to their facility, you should be at it. So at the end, after the West Coast Finch show, there's like a kind of an impromptu meeting about the university. So they're talking about a show floor, like a walk through the Ameristar plant. Which, if you guys haven't been through that, you absolutely should. Like just the amount of talking about scaling your people, right? The amount of robotics that is in this place is unreal. That way they can do more with the rock stars they have instead of having to try to find more rock stars. Huge area. Like they were talking about the area that they were going to mow to keep, slick down for it. Massive area. Everyone's staying at the Renaissance there in Tulsa, which is a great place. It's going to be a good time, and you guys don't want to miss it. It's going to be a heck of a time. After that, we've got yours is in January. So next up would be Tony's in December. It's going to be the Hilton Promenade. So it's on the Branson Landing. Beautiful place. It's going to be It's going to be early December, so it's going to be themed for Christmas. We talk about family friendly events. You want to talk about a family friendly destination? Branson's just about it. There's all sorts of. There's Silver City, which is like it's a theme. Well, it's not like, don't think theme park, but it's a themed attraction where basically you're walking down, you're seeing guys make horseshoes by hand, glass blowing, stuff like that. There's rides. There are attractions. I don't want you to hear theme park and think Six Flags. You know what I mean?
It's like Knott's Berry Farm in California. If you've ever been there, if you have, that place is super cool for the Cali people listening. So
anyway, Sildar City's there. Great place to go. You got all the shows. You got all but it's all family friendly. Like to say these people are protective about that is an understatement. So there was a casino that they were voting on coming in like 45 minutes away. This place, the group in general, the Branson group in general, just the different performers, all threw so much money against this thing, it didn't stand a chance the day one. Family friendly. So anyway, right there on the Branson Landing. That's Tony's deal. Next up, coming to your neck of the woods for your outdoor. Is it like an outdoor? What's the name?
I'm calling it an outdoor workshop.
Outdoor workshop.
Yeah, we are going to be X's and O's. It's going to be good. We're going to touch a field, build it. We're going to have, man, it's going to be good. We're going to pour concrete, twist, rebar. We're going to do masonry. I mean, I want people to understand while most of those trades, men and women, make it look easy, it's really hard.
Oh, I can't imagine.
So we're going to do some of that. We're going to hang some shingles. I got a 20,000 square foot facility here. I imagine the weather's not going to let us play much outside. We're not going to build big extravagant things, but we're just going to make sure that people understand the difference between a 212 pitch and a 12-12 pitch. So how to cut those angles so that way people understand, not that they're going to physically do the work, but they can explain the work to their homeowners.
And they can set expectations too.
Bingo,
like proper expectations.
And then my hope is to spend a lot of time talking about subcontractors, because I know across the United States, not everyone does subcontractors, but in the outdoor construction world, you have to use subcontractors. There's no way about it. And so talking about lien releases and subcontractor agreement, it's just another leg in your business. And so we're going to really get to go dive in, but it's not something where somebody could come out and be like, oh, no, I'm an expert. But it'll get the vision started, and I think some people will definitely be bold enough to start, but it will definitely jump started. 3 days will cover a lot, so we're pretty stoked about that. And then Fence Tech, oh my goodness, dude, the party is already like,
yeah. Mark teased a little bit about it that. Job Nimbus is very excited for the opening party.
Super grateful. Job Nimbus and Wood Defender Job Nimbus this year jumped in. That's their hometown. Job Nimbus is all in. I want to give one more plug, and then we got to probably wrap this up. Job Nimbus got into the fence world and had to take a step back and realize, hey, we need to clean some stuff up on our end. I think there were some false expectations on our end. and they reset, and their strategic plan with their next round of what they're doing has us all in. And they brought me out there as an influencer. They explained to me the process. I like to challenge, and I'm a good steward of everyone's time, energy, and money. And I can assure you that Job Nimbus is all in on us. And I know job costing is really important to a lot of people, and they're going all in on that. And so give Job Nimbus about a full year, and you won't be able to tell that it's a roofing software. It'll feel like a fencing software. And so there's a ton of money and time and resources investing in us. And what a great way, but to go to their town, and they're gonna celebrate with us by hosting the party. And of course, my boys at Wood Defender, they're the reason why we had the party the first year. And then Homeland and D&D and some of those people are coming right behind all that. So
very nice.
So cool. Man, Joe, I've enjoyed every bit of this. I could talk for hours, but I understand that we got to do the sequels and stuff.
Let's do this. You've got my scheduling link. Let's make this like a regular check-in, like a quarterly, whatever makes sense on your end. Because we've come up with 2 other shows just in this conversation of things we could talk about. So I'd love to keep checking in. I think, guys, you've got a wheelbarrow full of golden nuggets to haul away from this thing. Like I said, you're going to want to watch the replay to where you can pause, re-listen to a few things. Tremendous amount of value here. Robert, thank you so much. I appreciate you being willing to come in on a Saturday. I know this time slot's not the most convenient in the world, so I appreciate it.
No, I loved it. This particular conversation required all of us leaning in. And Joe, thank you for sharing your numbers as well. If y'all are curious about Joe's numbers, reach out to him. They're not mine to share, but if y'all want to hear about my numbers and see how the spreadsheets were made on my end, I'm happy to share. Just purplecoaching.com.
Absolutely, guys. I think the point of the whole thing, to wrap this thing up, is we're all not so different, right? Now we can do different revenue numbers. We can do different areas of the industry. We can specialize in different things. But what Robert and I realized looking at our numbers is just as different as our companies are, we're alike in the fact that there are patterns here that we all kind of follow that come out at a successful year.
Consistency compounds. You can go to the gym 24 hours straight and see no results. You can go to the gym 24 days for 1 hour and see results. Consistency compounds, and it takes time. So
absolutely,
Joe,
you gotta look for the good things.
Got to, my man. Well, thank you, buddy.
Robert, thank you so much. Guys, appreciate you tuning in. If you're listening to the podcast, you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. Please consider tuning in. Most every Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. Central, we go live with an area expert in their area of the industry and just chat about all things fence. So we'd love to see you guys. If you guys are watching live, again, thank you. Extra thank you for tuning in, sticking around to the end. I think you guys got a tremendous amount of value. Be sure to stick around in 2 weeks or come back in 2 weeks. We'll be live again talking about what else? The fence industry that we all know and love. For now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert.
And I'm Robert, the purple people teacher.
And we're reminding you that good fences
make great neighbors.
Bingo, nailed it. We'll see you guys next time.